Hello. Repeated collection of data over time can be critically important in many ways. It can help maintenance and planning, keeping costs low and sustainability high. This recurring or longitudinal data monitoring is essential in taking you from just monitoring things to actually managing them. In mWater, we've made it very easy to do longitudinal data monitoring in a robust way. In this video, we'll cover a number of examples of how this is already being done in the platform and learn how you can set up recurring data monitoring for your own use case. All of this also applies to Solstice, our sister platform, which covers all sectors and not just water and sanitation. The key takeaway from this video is to please connect sites or assets with surveys to make the most out of longitudinal data collection and infrastructure management in mWater. Once you know this, you can collect essentially any data you need over time, whether you are working with water, sanitation, health, education, or anything else. So let's begin. Longitudinal monitoring of any data is easy in mWater. Now, you can collect as many survey responses as you want. Surveys in mWater and Solstice are things which you can design yourself and add questions and basically collect any kind of data you need. And the best way to do longitudinal monitoring, as mentioned, is to link a survey to a site or asset. And then you fill those surveys out on the second visit, on the third visit, as many visits as you need, and link it all back to the same site if you're visiting the same place. So for the same school, you link it again. For the same water point, you link it again. For the same water asset, hospital, whatever. So why do that? Well, there are many reasons, and I've highlighted a few here. It's efficient. Once you've collected this site information once, it doesn't change. The basic facts about where the school is or the water borehole is, that doesn't change. The location, the name, ID. So you don't need to collect that basic information over and over. You get high quality data because it's consistent and it's linked together. And also, importantly, it's analyzable. It makes it easy to connect all these visits together and analyze and visualize them together. So you get a time series of what's happened and you can see progress over time. So let's do this. And just to be clear on the terminology, let's take a quick look at what sites and assets are. So in mWater's world, sites are individual locations or facilities that can be monitored over time. So that means things like individual water wells and boreholes, schools, health facilities, sanitation facilities, and so on. When I mention assets, I mean parts of a larger system. So you can have a water system in mWater and then track it with assets, map it to any level of detail you want. So that can mean things like pipes, taps, meters, valves, generators, pumps, and tanks. So you might have a meter reading survey and collect recurring data on meter readings, or the functionality of taps. And these things only need to be mapped once. So if you've mapped a site once, you don't need to do it again. That saves you a lot of effort. Here's just an example of school where you see that basic data fields are collected that one time. So the name, who manages this digital data in mWater, what type of school is it, a secondary school, what's the location, photo of a school, so on. So basic facts, standard fields that we provide. How do you do this link? We'll go through some live examples in a moment, but the basic idea is to add a site or asset question into your survey as you design it. So when an enumerator fills out the survey, they can create the site if it doesn't exist already, or link to it if it does. So you'll see when you add questions to your survey that after the basic questions, you'll have site and asset question options. We'll look at that in live examples. Now, you might already have a great idea why it's worth collecting recurring data, but I'll just throw out a few reasons why it's a great idea to collect recurring or longitudinal data in a repeated way. So, cost saving. Maintenance overall is much cheaper than rebuilding things that have fallen into total disrepair. So if you're doing recurring visitations and doing it in a platform that makes it easy, you're likely to save costs. You can detect problems early, catch issues when they're incipient before they escalate. If you're working on any key indicators, such as the SDGs, it's recurring data monitoring that makes measuring progress possible. And that's a key reason why we've designed mWater to facilitate this. And you can track the sustainability of your interventions in general. So do follow-up visits after the work is complete, whatever you've been working on, that's finished, infrastructure has been built, for example. You really want to make sure that that's actually having an impact over time. So you want an easy, lightweight way to be able to do this repeated monitoring. And once you've got this monitoring going, it makes it easier to target interventions. You may see dips in performance here and there, and then focus your interventions there. Overall, I would summarize that by saying recurring, repeated data monitoring is a key factor in moving from just monitoring and reporting things to actually managing things effectively. So here's a simple example of longitudinal data monitoring in mWater. You can track, for example, school attendance over time. So you can create this school site and then do these survey visits, fill out surveys maybe every few months. And then here we see this visualized also in mWater by this attendance of female students compared to male students. So here's a simple example. But this single location tracking can work in so many contexts. So this can mean meter reading surveys, water quality for boreholes, for example, community visits, hospital wash surveys, household visits, the list is endless. So we'll definitely cover this in a live example, but I'll just show a few broader examples of what's already being done in mWater now. You can do RapidWASH style SDG monitoring. So community level tracking where you visit individual households and see the results at the community level. So here we see SDG 6.1, the water service ladder, SDG 6.2, sanitation and hygiene, and how there's been baseline trackings for households, midline, endline, and follow-up responses, and then visualize as well. So you see, is there progress? And monitoring visits here and baseline to endline comparisons seem to show a positive impact for sanitation, for hygiene here, and also for water. So it gives you that overall picture, even as you're tracking that detailed household level data and building that up. So you get that. Check out RapidWASH. I'll put the link into the video notes. Here's another example of longitudinal monitoring. Azure in Central America is assessing utility capacity. So overall water system capacity across a number of key indicators, and then tracking progress of their interventions across hundreds of water service providers. So in this screenshot, we see the most recent indicator values visualized, tracked in mWater, but we also see a history of previous visits. So this is a really powerful component of longitudinal data collection, where you can see easily, overall we've improved this indicator for access. It's changed a little bit, gone down maybe in the latest view. We need to address that, but thankfully, water quality is good, and so on and so on. So a powerful example of how to do things at scale. And speaking of scale, here we see something in Haiti where all water systems are being tracked in mWater, where you can track key indicators for systems basically for the whole country. Here we're looking at one city's water system and for example, the revenue they've been collecting in a time series, but there are a number of key indicators that could be tracked and are being tracked. So the system is really flexible for that. So we've seen a bunch of examples. Let's now begin making it ourselves. So let's start with a very basic example. I'm designing a survey, and this is a school monitoring survey. And to do this longitudinal data monitoring, that gives us these results, students by attendance by date, we just need to add a few questions. We need a school question, a date of visit, and school demographics. So questions that give us the numbers of male and female students and faculty. So let's start this from scratch, and you can follow along. So I'm going to go in the portal or in Solstice, going to navigate to surveys and start my new survey. School visit survey. I'm going to add a new question, and as mentioned, it's going to be a site question. This is the key step in enabling powerful longitudinal data monitoring by choosing a site question and then the right type of site. You see there are lots of options. In this example, it needs to be a school. and give it a question text. That creates the school visited question, and the enumerator can fill that in. I'll then add the date question, so the enumerator can make it clear when they actually visited that place. And then we can add, let's say, a matrix question, so columns and rows. And then we can add columns, so this can be males, a number question, another number question for females. And then for the rows, we can say students as the first item and faculty or staff as the second item. So then we've essentially replicated what we had in our example. So site question, date question, and whatever else you want to ask. In this example, it's just numbers, but remember, you can keep designing surveys as you like and have plenty of options. Then you would deploy the survey and send your enumerators to collect that data. So how do we then visualize this? Let's go through the full example. I'm here in the survey report of my sample survey, and I could be in a dashboard, for example, or working on a data grid or console instead. The same principles will apply. Here we have a few charts and then a table that shows the detailed data. So let's try and replicate this all from scratch. I'm going to edit my dashboard here, the survey report. Let's start with a chart. So I'm dragging a chart, and then I will make a bar chart. I'm starting this from the survey anyway, so I will pick the survey as the source. I will want to show all the survey responses because I'm wanting to show the history too. Then I need to pick the horizontal x-axis and then the vertical y-axis. So the date field essentially, and then the value I want to show. So if I pick the horizontal axis, I know I chose the school and date visit as questions. I will choose the date of visit, maybe by year and month, or by year and quarter. And then I see these are even bars. Well, why? Because there's 2 schools monitored and each of them has a response once per quarter here. So I don't want that as my vertical axis. I want something more like data from my school demographics. So let's say I want to see the females and males together. So I can say the females is the vertical axis, and this gives me a bar chart and shows the values from the school. If I want to show male students as well, an easy way to do that in a bar chart, by the way, is to add another series. So because this data is coming from a separate question, but then the process is the same. Pick the same horizontal axis and then the same vertical axis, except instead of female students, we pick male students. So now we see the ratios of female to male students. I can give them names here. And side by side is pretty useful. If I wanted to stack them, I can click the stacked option at the top here. Now I get stacked values. So student attendance by visit. So that's how to do a bar chart. You can revisit this video, of course, or read more guides on how to create bar charts. But let's create a table next. I'll also note that we have a quick filter. Let's rebuild that. Quick filter. So something that allows us to filter by some dimension of data. Let's filter by the school. So here is one of the powers of having that link. We linked our data to a school, and now we have access to all of those basic data fields of the school by navigating this branch here. So I can say that I want to filter by school name, maybe by multiple schools. So now I have a filter here, and I have 2 schools. I can pick between them. So the data will change. School 1, school 2. So you can really drill down on data how you like. And how do we build a table like this that shows the school name, data visit, and demographics? Let's do that next. I'll drag the table widget
pick the data source, and then just pick the columns. So now if I want the school name, remember I can navigate to the school, the linked school through here, pick the name, pick the date of visit, and then from the school demographics matrix question, pick this, female student number, and then the male student number. And this can be whatever is relevant to you in your survey. That's the principle of it. And if I remove the filter, I'll see that we have data here. And you can then order this how you like. So that's a basic way of creating a linked question, a site link question. I've filled in responses in advance. So we have this data that will come through as people collect data, and then visualizing it by using the date field as the x-axis, and then reaching out to the school to kind of connect it all to see data by school. Okay, so that's one example. I think we have time for another one, maybe something simple as well, but slightly different, a meter reading survey for water meters. What's different here? It's even simpler, except that instead of a site question, we are looking at an asset question. Assets, as you remember, are components of entire systems. So that can be referring to root asset of a system, but mostly that will be things like taps, pumps, meters, valves, things that are components of systems like this one, where all of these are connected somehow. It might be a police station tap, like this one, or a meter. This system has 2 meters mapped at the moment, I'm aware. So we'll see meter number 2 here, for example. So let's say we wanted to do periodic visits to these meters and update the value. You can use an indicator, you can do it in a number of ways, but in our example, we're just creating this meter reading survey. So again, let's start from scratch here. We'll go to the Surveys tab. We will create a new survey. Call it our water meter monitoring survey. So let's add our first question. Which one does it need to be? Well, we know it will be an asset question. It's very similar to a site question, but we can narrow it down first by asset system. Mostly we'll want to select the standard water asset system, and then further limit it to one or more asset types, so meter in our case. So that's what we need to do. We created an asset question here and picked an asset system and then limited to meters. So this means that it will only apply to meter assets, not anything else. We're not taking pump readings or pipe readings. Then we just add our date question, date of the meter reading, and then maybe we'll just add a number question, needs to be answered, meter reading. We will choose it to be a decimal number in this case, and maybe we'll add a validation to say it's a positive number. So the reading must be positive. So we can't have negative numbers there. You can add validations like this, but that's basically it. So now we have a basic water meter monitoring survey. Let's jump ahead in time and imagine we've gotten some meter readings done for a couple of pipes. How does that then get visualized? Well, you could create a dashboard like this, where you see the meter readings over time and map them as well. So then you have here a quick filter that allows us to pick between the 2 meters. So the values are shown here for this meter, and then for this other one, you can track your progress like this. So a simple example, easy to do. Let's build this again though, just to be clear on how to do the visualization component of longitudinal data. We can create this line chart and then this table again. We'll pick a chart, choose the line type, use the meter reading survey, our survey as the data source, and same logic as before. Take our date of reading, our date as the horizontal axis, and then the meter reading itself as the vertical axis. That's what you want to show on the vertical axis. Show a trend line, do some fancy things, show it as an area if that's more useful, or as bars. So simple enough to do. And then again for the table, as we saw with the previous example, we can create a table widget, pick columns, and again, here you see the value of the link between the asset and the data you're collecting by being able to navigate to it in the data source navigation. So now we've narrowed it to meter 2, and there's this other unnamed meter as well that we've been monitoring. Just to make it clear, you can order this data by, let's say, the water meter name and the meter reading in descending order, or by the date in descending order would probably be more relevant here. So the latest reading will show first, and it'll show one system at a time or 1 meter at a time. So those are basically the steps to allow you to capture data that's linked to a site or an asset and visualize it. One more example I had in mind was this RapidWASH household and community survey, which is more complicated because it allows me to highlight a key additional feature of mWater. So here we have things like survey phase, from baseline to endline to monitoring, a community question. So we're linking it to a community and not a water point or a school. But then it is a household visit. So it's going to locate the household with a location question, but not actually link it to a site. It's being linked to a community. And that allows this fine aggregation, this combined view, very nicely, of 6,000 responses in a baseline, and you can see this highlight if you want, or dig into the details if you want to. So how does that work? And then we have, of course, details of actually tracking the SDG question. So quite a lot of questions like this. So what if you wanted to do this? Well, for RapidWASH, you can go and create a RapidWASH project, but you'll see that these are linked to what we call indicators, things that are here in the indicator library. So you can learn more about indicators in our library here, but let's say I wanted to do this household and community visit. One more time, let's create a new survey, as we are excited about our longitudinal data monitoring, and call it our RapidWASH survey example. And instead of adding those all one by one, if I have in mind what I want to track, I can open the indicator library and look for RapidWASH. And then I know that I want to get the water services ladder. So then I can learn more about it here, but I know I want to take it, so I'm going to add it to the survey. What this does is going to bring all those questions into my survey already. And I can either keep the values of the indicator, so all the final results visible to everyone, but keep the details hidden. That's our recommended view, or keep it all private to me. I'll keep it open. So it'll build this form for me. So all of those questions that have been well designed and linked together and giving that high-level result have then been combined. But notice as well, the site question is a critical required component of how this works. So take a look at the indicator library to turbocharge how you do your monitoring in mWater. And if you find that there are places you can contribute to that, then let us know and let's talk about that. But that brings us just to the end. Let's recap. Key point from this video, please use sites or assets, depending on your use case, together with surveys for the most effective longitudinal recurring data collection and infrastructure management in mWater and Solstice. This combination allows you to be efficient. You only need to collect the site data once, links it in a robust way, so you know that you'll be looking at the apples and apples, comparing the same thing, visit 1, 2, 3, 4, so on for the given location. And then when you're visualizing, a key trick is to pick the survey as a data source, if you're going this way, and then choose to see all of the responses. So then you can see the history. In all our examples, we basically used the date field to track things over time. I'll mention as well that if you quickly want to see the latest data for a data source, just pick the site itself as a data source. Then it will do a one-to-many mapping and find the latest data. If you want to learn more, check out our other videos and the Resource Center linked in the video notes. There's plenty of material here and there, and those will be updated as new features come online. And subscribe to this channel to keep up to date of feature developments and new guides in mWater and Solstice. Hopefully this was useful. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
You got what you wanted to